If you're within a few years of retirement and you've done the saving, run the numbers, maybe even picked a date, this video is specifically for you. Because here's what I want you to know right up front. The financial part, you're probably further along than you think. But there's a second set of challenges that almost nobody talks about, and they don't show up on any spreadsheet. They show up after you leave. I've spent a lot of time talking with people who've retired early, and the ones who struggled weren't struggling because the math was wrong. They were caught off guard by things they simply didn't know to prepare for. By the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what those things are, and more importantly, you'll know how to get ahead of them before you walk out that door. Stay with me, because one of these might be the most important thing you hear this year. Let's start with something that catches more people than you'd expect. Picture this. A woman named Diane, 58, solid savings, good 401k balance, had a rough stretch at work. New management, longer hours, a project that went sideways. After 6 months of that, she pulled the trigger. She retired. And the numbers mostly worked, but mostly isn't the same as solidly. Here's the thing about difficult seasons at work. They are very good at making retirement feel more ready than it actually is. When frustration is high, our brain starts editing the retirement math in our favor. We round up the good parts, we round down the gaps. Fidelity has found that one of the most common reasons people retire earlier than planned is job dissatisfaction, not financial readiness. That's a real gap, and it can have real consequences. The fix isn't complicated, it's just a rule. The decision to retire gets made by the numbers, not the mood. You can let a hard season at work prompt you to run the numbers seriously. That's healthy. But the numbers make the call, not the frustration. Here's something most people overlook. There's a simple way to know the difference. If the numbers still look right after 3 good weeks at work, they're real. If they only look right when you're miserable, that's the emotion talking. Now, here's one that surprises almost everyone, and it's not about money at all. Imagine a couple, Gary and Susan, mid-60s. Gary retires. He's ready. He's been looking forward to this. Susan plans to work 2 more years. Her department is in the middle of something big, and she wants to see it through. Gary imagined retirement as them. Travel, flexibility, long mornings, no schedule. What he got at first was a lot of quiet Tuesdays. This is more common than people realize. According to AARP research, nearly half of married couples retire at different times, often by 2 years or more. That's nearly half of everyone watching this right now, maybe you and your spouse. And when the timelines don't match, the retirement you pictured isn't quite the one you're living, at least not yet. The financial plan was ready, the household plan wasn't. Those are 2 different things, and they need 2 different conversations. Here's a question worth sitting with for a moment. Have you and your partner actually talked about what retirement looks like, not just when, but what a typical week feels like for both of you? That conversation before you retire is worth more than most people realize. This one might be the most quietly surprising of all. Think about what you've been doing for the last 30 or 40 years. Saving, watching the accounts grow, being careful, delaying things, telling yourself, not yet, not yet, not yet. And then one day, retirement arrives. And suddenly, the whole point is that the money is there to be used. That sounds obvious. In practice, it doesn't feel obvious. There's a name for this in behavioral finance. It's sometimes called saver's remorse. The people who are most disciplined about building wealth often find it the hardest to shift into spending it. Vanguard has written about this. Retirees, on average, spend significantly less than they could in the early years of retirement. Not because they can't, because it feels wrong to spend after decades of being careful. That's nearly every diligent saver. Maybe that's you. The good news is this isn't a character flaw. It's actually a sign the saving habits ran deep. But those habits need a gentle update in retirement because underspending in the early years, when health and energy are highest, is its own kind of mistake. Here's a simple way to think about it. The goal shifts from growing the pile to funding the life. Both require intention, just different kinds. Here's where I want to slow down for a moment because this one hit people harder than almost anything else. When you retire, you don't just leave a job, you leave a piece of how you've thought about yourself for decades. Think about this. When someone asks, "What do you do?" what do you say right now? You probably answer without thinking. That answer has been part of you for a long time. The day you retire, that answer changes. And that change, for a lot of people, is bigger than they expected. A study published in the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology found that retirement is one of the most significant identity transitions an adult experiences, comparable in some ways to becoming a parent or losing a spouse. That's not a small thing. What helps, and this is something people who navigate retirement well tend to have in common, is building a new answer to what do you do before you need it. Not a job, a purpose, a rhythm, a reason to get up on a Tuesday that has nothing to do with a paycheck. For some people, that's volunteering. For others, it's a hobby that finally gets real time. For others, it's being present with family in a way that wasn't possible before. The content doesn't matter as much as the intention. Retirement isn't an ending, it's a beginning that takes a little building. And if you go in expecting that it takes a year or so to really find your stride, you'll be far less surprised when it does. Here's something that catches a lot of people off guard in a completely different way. Before retirement, everything points toward one goal. Get there. Save enough. Hit the number. Cross the finish line. And then you cross it, and you realize there is no finish line. There's just a new set of decisions. In retirement, the planning shifts from building wealth to managing income, and that requires a different kind of attention. For example, if you're retiring before Medicare at 65, you'll likely be on an ACA Marketplace health plan. ACA stands for the Affordable Care Act. It's the health insurance marketplace most early retirees use before Medicare kicks in. Your premiums on that plan are tied directly to your income, specifically something called your Modified Adjusted Gross Income, or MAGI. The simpler way to think about it, the IRS looks at your total income from all sources, and that number determines what you pay for health insurance. If that number comes in too high in a given year, you could lose your subsidy and face a significant unexpected bill. That's real money, and it requires real attention, year by year. Beyond that, there are Roth conversions to consider. Moving money from a traditional IRA into a Roth IRA during lower income years and early retirement to reduce taxes later. And there are required minimum distributions, RMDs, which are the mandatory withdrawals the IRS requires from traditional retirement accounts starting at age 73. If those aren't managed carefully, they can push your income higher than you intended. None of this is unmanageable, but none of it disappears at retirement either. Here's the reframe that helps. You're not done planning, you're just planning differently now. From building to protecting, from saving to sustaining. The people who thrive in retirement are the ones who expected that shift and leaned into it. Let me make this real for a moment. Most people spend years planning the financial side of retirement. Spreadsheets, projections, Monte Carlo simulations, and almost nobody spends any time planning what a Tuesday looks like. Here's something worth trying if you're within 2 years of retirement. Take a week off. A real week, not a vacation. Don't go anywhere. Stay home. Live as if you're already retired. Wake up without an alarm. Don't check work email. Don't fill the week with errands. Just exist in the space retirement will actually create. Notice what you reach for. Notice what you miss. Notice what you're relieved you don't have. That week will tell you more about your retirement readiness than almost any calculator. And if it feels a little uncomfortable, good. That's useful information. It means there's something to work on before the transition is permanent. So let's bring this home. At the start of this video, I said the financial part is probably further along than you think, and I meant that. But I also said there's a second set of challenges, the ones that don't show up on any spreadsheet. And now you know what they are. The emotional decision trap, the spousal timeline gap, the saver to spender shift, the identity reset, the planning that never actually stops. None of these are reasons not to retire early. They are reasons to go in with eyes open. Here's the simplest way I know to say it. Early retirement rewards the people who prepared for the life, not just the number. The number gets you to the door. The life is what's waiting on the other side. And here's the thing, the fact that you're watching this, thinking about this, asking these questions now, that already puts you ahead of most people. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Of everything we covered today, which one surprised you most? The identity shift? The spending psychology? The planning that keeps going? Drop it in the comments. I read everyone. And if this gave you something to think about, save this video. Come back to it as you get closer to your date. The parts that land hardest will probably change as you get nearer. If you found this helpful, subscribing means you won't miss what's coming next.